So I think there's a lot of that which goes on, say, in the Bible.
Mark Vernon is a philosopher and psychotherapist with a special interest in religion.
Jesus actually gets angry on a remarkable number of occasions in the Gospels. He gets frustrated at people's hardness of heart, and he gets angry at those who can't see what he's talking about. And, there's something good about that. There's something good about moving people, especially when you're trying to tip them into a whole new way of viewing the world. You're not just trying to sort of amend things as they are. You're really hoping that something completely new can break through, which is what, Christianity originally was about. And so passion and anger are going to play a part in that.
But at the same time, early cultures were painfully aware that anger could be a very dangerous force when unleashed in mere mortals.
There were a variety of views in the ancient world. On one hand, you had the Stoics, and they tended to feel that anger was bad per se, and they focused particularly on the emotional side, the side that stirs you up. And someone like Seneca can write an essay on anger where he takes quite a lot of glee, actually, in describing what the angry person looks like. They start to spit out of their mouth, their eyes go red. And he just thinks this is such an ugly, unappealing version of what it is to be human, that anger must be just bad per se. Others, more in the Platonic and Aristotelian tradition, felt there was such a thing as what you might call right anger. Someone can get angry and it can be good if, whilst they're angry, they can kind of channel the energy of anger in a productive way. So it can inspire them perhaps to do something with courage, or it can inspire them to put together a good argument that might make the case for justice. But they thought that it's a pretty neat trick to pull off, and not many people can actually do it, because the trouble with anger is it always has this propensity to run out of control. But certainly people like the Epicureans and the Stoics wondered about why people do things that are seemingly irrational and then do them again and again. So going to war, for example, was one quite common thing to think about. And they realised that people could be motivated by a side of themselves that they weren't aware of until afterwards, when they were lamenting what had happened.
That's the crux of the problem. Anger may have its uses. You might even think of it as a kind of divine force. But when we actually get angry in daily life, it doesn't make us godlike.
I'm Professor Ryan Martin. I'm the chair of the psychology program here at UW Green Bay, and I am an anger researcher who hosts the All the Rage podcast. When you think about what happens when you get angry, it's essentially that your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight system kicks in. Your heart rate increases, your breathing rate increases, you start to sweat, your digestive system slows down. And so that's all part of your body's physiological response that is there to energize you to respond to that injustice. And so very similar to the Hulk. We also know that when people are feeling intensely, their thoughts do tend to be a little bit more compartmentalized, right? And so they're more focused on survival, they're more focused on, getting revenge or whatever. And again, that's actually adaptive too, in the sense that you don't want to be thinking about lots and lots of things if you're trying to respond to this particular injustice. It's better for you to be focused on this than it would be to think more broadly.
And strange things happen when our ancient brains meet the modern world.
One of the things I always try to point to is what types of situations tend to lead to anger. And it's those things that could have been avoided that leave us feeling helpless. In general, I think that people are busier and have increased demands on their life. So the consequences of being slowed down feel so much worse now than they used to feel. A 2-minute longer line at the grocery store feels so much worse because it may set your whole day back in some way.
And this can help us see why anger is so widespread these days, even though the world's getting better. Because it's not really about objective conditions. Instead, whether we're talking about small daily annoyances or big historical forces, anger is inherently about power relations. The problem is that the way we've evolved to feel and to react doesn't always work so well in the modern world.
When people are angry, they often want to hurt the person who angered them. That isn't productive. It isn't responsible. And so part of what we have to do is identify other ways of channeling that anger and other ways of dealing with it.
The truth is that we have more control over our anger and over whether it leads to aggressive behavior than we might have assumed.
Emotions are not necessarily the result of evolutionary processes. They are learned tools that we develop and we change and we cultivate in very creative